Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
Derek Shulman, a renowned music industry veteran, has excelled both as a performer and an executive. Gentle Giant was a British progressive rock band known for their sophisticated musicianship, adventurous songwriting, and genre-defying sound. Formed in 1970 by brothers Derek, Ray, and Phil Shulman, along with Kerry Minnier, Gary Green, and Martin Smith, the band had 11 best-selling albums and worldwide tours, solidifying their place in progressive rock history. Gentle Giant was the recipient of Progressive Rock's Hall of Fame Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017. In 2026, Gentle Giant released a newly remixed and remastered edition of In a Glass House. After the band disbanded, Derek transitioned to the business side of the music industry and had great success working at Polygram Music, Atco Records, Roadrunner Records, and he also founded 2+ Music and Entertainment Incorporated. Some of the artists that he nurtured and collaborated with during his time in the business side of the industry include Bon Jovi, Tears for Fears, Cinderella, Bad Company, AC/DC, and many others. Up next on Celeb Savant, discussing his journey on stage performing and working behind the scenes in the business side of the music industry, is Derek Shulman from Gentle Giant. Where are you in the world and how are you doing?
I'm sitting here on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City, and I'm doing comparatively okay, even though I've just had dental work. So if I'm slurring, you'll understand why. Generally, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Well, you're sounding perfect, so I don't hear any of that coming through. Let's dive into the first question. Why did the band choose the name Gentle Giant?
Well, I'll tell you directly the story. We were patronized, if you like, as musicians, by three brothers, by a manager called Jerry Braun, and he put the money behind us putting a new band together. And someone who worked for him came down to Portsmouth in England, where we lived, and checking out what we were doing. And he heard the music we were putting together. And he asked us, what's the band's name? Have you decided? And we hadn't. He said, well, your band is really heavy. And it was also very light. It's kind of almost so gentle and big. And he said, how about Gentle Giant? And we said, okay, you're paying the bill, so that's fine by us. So our management company suggested a name, and because they're paying the bills, we said, fine, no problem.
Okay, so now let's rewind to your story. At what age, whether as a child or teenager, did you think, okay, I want to be in this world of creativity? How did that journey progress, and how did the band form?
Well, I mean, I was born into a very musical family. My father was a professional musician, but I also went to grammar school. But I think when I heard Love Me Do on the radio, that was a turning point for me. Yeah, I had to get a guitar, and I heard that, and I put a school band together, and I said, okay, all the kids in my class at grammar school were going on to be professors or physicians or in the upper echelons of the society of Britain in those days. The job master came around to me and said, Shulman, what do you want to be? I said, I'm going to be a rock star. And that was age 13. And I actually have it on record. The kids who were in my class laughed, and so did the teacher. He said, you will never be a rock star. It was 1 in a million make it. I said, well, I'm going to be 1 in a million. And 3 or 4 years later, at school, I came back with my first record deal and gave him my autograph.
Oh, wow. Amazing. But now then, how did you connect with the band to formulate that?
We put a school band together that graduated into a band called Simon Dupree and the Big Sound. and we were very popular in the UK and Europe. And we had a very, very big hit in 1967, 68 called Kites. And after that, we had a couple of more hits. And so we were very popular. This is myself and my brothers. But we were also learning to be better musicians. At that time, in the mid to late 60s, music and the culture was evolving. And so the fact that we were playing to audiences that wanted to hear the hits started becoming very depressing to us, even though we were making very good money. So at the end of 1969, we said, let's break up this band and start something absolutely brand new. And this is where I said, the manager came in and they said, okay, what do you want to do? We said, we don't know, but we want to start something absolutely brand new and do something which, we were experimenting with musically. And then we became Gentle Giant in a very few sentences.
You guys were creating and releasing for the decade of the 70s, that whole era. So being part of the band and going through that journey, how was it different to your previous band in the sense of the creativity, the genre, the direction? What were the differences?
It was literally 180.
Okay.
It was so different. I mean, we were creating our own music. We were creating our own style. And the members of the band came in with different backgrounds and different influences. Kerry, our first recruit, had joined us, and he had a degree in composition and percussion from the Royal Academy of Music. My brother Ray, who was in the previous group, he was a classically trained violinist. I loved R&B and soul. And then we recruited a guitarist, Gary Green, who was a fantastic blues player. We went through a couple of drummers, but John Weathers became our major player, and he was a great rock drummer. We were creating something new, as opposed to in the first group, we were doing other people's music as well as our own, but we were doing something which was ours. We weren't part of a scene in London. We were down in the south coast of England, but we were a real band. Everyone lived down there. When we weren't touring or writing together or playing on the road, we were down there fishing. We were a real band.
During that 10 years of creating, what were some of the challenges that you faced and overcame?
Were vast. I mean, to actually get an audience and make a living. But we were lucky enough to be good, honestly, and get a really good following live. And that's something which was very important to us. Our records did quite well. Only two albums made a top 50 in the US. In the US became a big market for us, and certainly Canada. But we played and played and played. We were very hard workers. In those 10 years, I don't think we had a day off. If we weren't touring, we were rehearsing. If we weren't rehearsing, we were writing. If we weren't writing, we were recording. Our touring schedule was pretty much nonstop. So we got an audience based on our live appearances and our recording, of course. But I think our music resonated on a live basis with the fans. And so a lot of the recordings, and I've used this phrase before, was a sketch for the painting, which is the live show. We just went ahead and said, we're going to just do it and work our asses off. And we did.
The band ended in 1980, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
What have you been doing for the last period of time in your world?
I did my memoirs last year. I guess some people know that, what I've done. And I didn't want to go back, and I didn't want to be in another band. I didn't really want to produce other bands either. And I got a call from a friend in New York. I was living in LA at the time, saying, have you thought about being in a record company? And the question that came to me was absolutely not. I mean, the record company is the enemy. Not really, but the record company is like, they're their suits and they don't know what it's like to be a musician. And nevertheless, he said, look, why don't you come to New York and meet this team that we're putting together? So I did. And I got offered a job at Polygram Records in 1982. And I became from Han Solo to Darth Vader. I joined the dark side.
How long did you work there and what were you doing there?
I started in promotion. Then I went to A&R in at Polygram Records and, had some decent successes. And then I went on to become president of Atco Records at Atlantic at Warner Music. And after that, I became president and CEO of Roadrunner Records. And after that, I had my own little company, and now I have a little consulting company. So I've been through various incarnations of running companies and signing artists that I've believed in and were unique in their own way. So I signed bands from Bon Jovi to Pantera to Slipknot to working with AC/DC and Dream Theater, Men Without Hats. I've signed tons of bands and had some success in that world.
I think more than some.
Well, I'm trying to be very modest here.
During that period of time that you were working behind the scenes, in inverted commas, at the record label, was there ever that, I want to get back up on stage?
No, I did my time. We did 16 or 17 years of touring, but I loved, the fact that I was able to help as an executive, musicians and artists to see their dream fulfilled, whatever dream that was. There was no musician that could come to me and say, you don't know what it's like to do X, Y, and Z, because having been on the road myself since I was 15, until I was 32, I knew exactly what it was like to do everything and anything. So I brought that to the job in the executive area. So I never really wanted to replace someone who was on stage. There was times when I knew what a band should do. A band like Cinderella, which I signed, when I first started, the record was a huge success. But live, they were still trying to find themselves. And I said, look, you film yourself on the stage and take it back into your bus and look at yourselves and say, okay, would you pay $25 to $30 to see this band? And these are the kind of things I did with bands, and they learned by me being really honest with them. So that's something I could bring to that job.
I like that point that you made around honesty, because a lot of people, it doesn't matter what sector they're in, when they with people who are labeled as successful or labeled as whatever you want to call it, they put on masks and they try to appease them and please them and be sort of a yes person because they think that's what the other person wants to hear. So when you was telling artists or people the honesty, did you ever get any ego pushback?
Truthfully, no. Again, I think I was lucky in the fact that of my background, having been a musician, having done pretty much everything the band does. I mean, the fact that I asked with Bon Jovi, I said, John, we need this next album to be massive. You do a great live. How about getting a co-writer? And if someone had said to Gentle Giant, why don't you get a co-writer? We'd have probably knocked them out, But nevertheless, John said, okay, if you think that's the right thing, let's give it a try. So I introduced him to Desmond Child. And of course, Desmond and John and Richie got together and we wrote Supreme When Wet and, Living on a Prayer and You Give Love. It worked. These kind of things, being honest with them and say, why don't you try this, see if it works? I've done the same thing with just about every band, including AC/DC, who are known to be very, very stubborn. And, when I took over their recordings, I was lucky in the fact that Angus and Malcolm, their brother, was in the Easy Beats. And he remembered me from being in the Easy Beats. And he said, is it the same Derek Shulman that was in Simon Dupree? And they said, yes. And he said, you could trust him. So they allowed me into their camp. So I made sure that they, did the right music. And I introduced them to Bruce Fairbairn and Bob Rock. And we went to Vancouver. and The Razor's Edge was recorded, and it brought them back from the dead. And of course, Thunderstruck came out, and AC/DC was back. So again, that trust and honesty played well for me, I think.
In your experience and in your world, what is that something that you see in an artist or a band to say, oh, they've got something?
Someone who does something that is both unique, not a follower. Be unique and also be great. Uniqueness today is very, very hard to find, honestly. But in whatever genre I signed bands, whether it was Dream Theater, whether it was Pantera, whether it was Bon Jovi, whether it was Man Without Hats, whether it was Slipknot, every band of those, and any genre, they were unique. They were doing something that no other band was doing or had forgotten to do. They were doing something that was theirs. And the only way to make it in a huge way is to do something that no one else is doing, but also be focused and be great at it. Not just good, great, and work your ass off.
I love me a CD. I still budget for my CDs every month. For me, it's an energy exchange to say thank you to the artist for all the hard work. I like the journey of the choice, the booklet, the unpacking, listening to song from one to whatever number. I'm unsure if you are or not aware, massive uptick of physical around the world. Last year in the US, I was reading in Variety, $1.40 billion spent on vinyls. A couple of years ago in the UK, 5.9 million vinyls sold, the biggest since 1993. Last year, also in the UK, there's a basket of products that they gauge exchanges on. There needs to be a high number of exchanges daily for a product to be in the basket. And because of the upsurge of CDs again, CDs are back in the basket. And the research is showing that it's the teenagers, it's the younger kids diving into this world, not the older, in inverted commas, nostalgic people. Then we have Spotify and the streaming platforms. What is your observation of the landscape at the moment?
Well, I think there's a kind of a backlash, to be honest with you, with tech. And I think the younger people, younger kids, are looking at their fathers and grandfathers' collections and saying, what are these? As you may know, we just remixed this album, and it sounds amazing. And we've got a new version. And I think that holding something and looking at the lyrics and looking at these things and sliding out the physical part, it has humanity, it has soul, it has something that is yours, as opposed to this ethereal thing that is in the cloud and you can access it. It's something which you can get hold of. And I think that that's been missing for the last 20 plus years. I don't think we're all going to go back to this. I mean, obviously the tech and streaming and AI are here to stay, but it's kind of a backlash with the younger generation. And I think there will be a backlash with all the computerized music as well that is coming out with these faceless singers and songs that are analytically put together, to be honest with you.
So you referenced the album, so tell us all about it. It's the 50th anniversary of In the Glass House. Why did you decide to release this? Obviously, it was the anniversary. Tell us about the journey and the creation of this project.
This one in particular is important because we didn't have the multi-tracks. This is the only album that we haven't been able to remix. And we did the album back in the day in a real hurry because we only had about 4 or 5 weeks to do it. And sonically, it didn't really crack, even though creatively it was a really good album. But it was an album which is a milestone in Gentle Giant's life. My brother, Phil, had left the band and we became a 5-piece. And doing the album as a 5-piece, it was a kind of a bittersweet experience because my sibling left the band in a kind of a not a great way, and me and my brother Ray took over the leadership, if you like, and we had to do this album in a hurry. We wrote, recorded, and mixed it in the period of like 5 weeks because we had a US tour coming up. And I think musically it was really well done, but sonically it really didn't crack it. So we never had the chance to remix it. But with today's new technology, we were able to take it into the studio, the 1/4 inch, and actually take apart every individual instrument, not just stems, but every instrument with this brand new technology we were able to do it and remix it like we should have done back in the day. So we broke it down into 24 tracks and made it sound like it should have done in 1973.
And is it only on vinyl or CD as well?
Oh no, CD, Blu-ray, 5.1, Atmos, everything you could, think of, even streaming.
Okay. Let's focus on the physical though. For any upcoming artists that's starting out, what advice would you give them?
Number one, practice, 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 and be great. Not good, great. Number two, or number one, actually, be unique. Don't look at other bands and say, I want to be like them and they're big, so let me try to be like them. Do something that is yours. Do something that is no one else is doing. And then go on stage and see if people like you. And if they do, then, you'll get an audience and you'll become more and more popular. It's not going to be easy. The other thing is, don't expect to be rich and famous because you're really good. Just do it because you love it. And if you don't love it, don't do it. But again, be unique and work your ass off to be great. And then you have a chance of doing something. There's a band, one of the very few bands now that I've seen that have this kind of uniqueness. It's a band called Angers de Poitrine. They're incredibly unique. They're just two guys, and they're doing something which suddenly I'm looking and saying, wow, this is something that I haven't seen or heard before. And you have to be like that. Do something that no one's heard before that will grab you intellectually, emotionally, and in your gut and your soul. Not just follow the trends that are happening right now.
When you say trends, I'm hearing has to be 5 seconds for TikTok, so grab their attention, all that nonsense.
Absolutely no. 180 from that. Don't even think about TikTok. Just do something that is yours, and forget what's on your phone. Forget what's on your computer. Just do something which is yours, and that way you'll find it out whether you're going to be important or not.
You still working and consulting today?
Just little bits and pieces, yes.
Derek, I love this next game. I know if I had to ask you this question in every day, I know your answer will be different. So it's very important to understand I'm not saying favorite. I'm saying top of mind. If once we finish this conversation, you go away and you feel like listening to 5 artists, who would those 5 artists be?
Frank Zappa, Miles Davis, Tchaikovsky, Jethro Tull, and ABBA.
Derek, the podcast is listened to throughout the world. As a final message, what would you like to say?
Thanks for being, fans of Gentle Giant, fans of the music. Again, I'm talking to the musicians out there. Be unique, be yourself, and be great, and work hard. And don't expect the world to come to you. You got to go do it. And again, work your ass off and enjoy life. But again, just be unique and be yourself.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.